academicmp3audiobooks.com.
Gentlemen, welcome to the Alpha Male Guide. What is the meaning of life? What is the purpose of life? Why are we here? What is my purpose in the universe? Why was I born? What is the goal of one's existence? And the answer is very simple. The answer is pleasure. Members of the AMC, the Alpha Male Club, subscribe to 3 cardinal rules, and rule number 1 is the purpose of life is pleasure. Too simple? Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star is a simple melody, yet it took a genius of Mozartonian stature to compose it. If an answer is right under your nose, it's almost impossible to see it. Pleasure is the reason why you get a job, cavort with women, practice sport, conduct business, educate yourself, drink, eat, laugh, talk, sing, paint, and so on. If you didn't like doing those things, you wouldn't do them. This treatise, the Alpha Male Guide, is all about how best to derive pleasure from the world. He who derives the most pleasure out of life lives the better life. We call these kinds of males alpha males. You've seen alpha males before. You might have seen them strutting around, laughing it up. You might have seen them loitering in a corner, reading a book at the library. You might have seen them on the weekends hitting a baseball or climbing a mountain. You might have seen them sauntering down the street with a pretty girl on their arm. What is the common denominator for members of the Alpha Male Club? A zest for life, a hunger for excellence, an appreciation of the female of the species, an existence spent in the pursuit of pleasure in all shapes and forms. Alpha males get laid, betas don't. Alphas get the best jobs and the prettiest girls. Alphas laugh longest and loudest. Alphas have patience, kindness, enthusiasm, serenity, and peace. A great deal of the alpha's time and energy is devoted to women and the pursuit of women. Alphas rock, betas don't. So what is the philosophy with which an alpha approaches the world? Pleasure. Pleasure is the guiding force in the alpha's life. If you would like an example of what pleasure is, I would like to invite you now to hold your breath for a few moments. Right now, take a breath and hold it. Your body knows all about pleasure. Mother Nature has built her genius into your very cells. For in a few seconds, you will want to take another life-giving breath, and your body and mind will revel in pleasure. Now, in a few more seconds, some basic pleasure-giving functions will kick in, and you will be forced to take another breath. It will happen involuntarily. This is an example of some basic hardwiring that is built into your machine, into your system, and it works very well. If you're still holding your breath, you're starting to suffer from hypoxia now, the technical term for lack of oxygen. Your nervous system is frantically signaling your brain that is in need of oxygen. Every cell in your body is shouting for it. So go ahead and take that breath. Good stuff. Every cell in your body is enjoying itself. Every cell in your body is now experiencing pleasure. It's as simple as that. We have just witnessed your basic functions teaching us a valuable lesson. There are ways of existing, of behaving that bring you pain. Pain is holding your breath. And there are facets of existence that bring you pleasure. And that is taking a breath. Now, these are the basic hardwired functions that you must subscribe to in order to survive. But now we have to deal with the rest of your brain. We have to deal with what we like to call your higher functions. These are the things that separate you from the bulk of the species on the planet. These aspects of existence are generated by your oversized brain. And with that brain comes the ability to think, feel, and reason. When it comes to oxygen, there are ways of behaving and living that will bring you pain, holding your breath, and there are ways of behaving and living that will bring you pleasure, taking a breath. These are very simple concepts: pleasure and pain, good and evil, vice and virtue, black and white. If you stick your hand in the fire, you will feel pain. A nice meal after a period of time without food will bring you pleasure. Likewise, when you are dealing with your higher functions, There are certain behavioral codes and ways of conduct that will bring you pleasure. If you drive your car on the left side of the road, it will bring you pain. If you are nice to other people, it will bring you pleasure. Finding ways to derive pleasure from your higher functions will bring you clear-cut results. Figuring out how to attain that pleasure is as simple as knowing not to stick your hand in the fire or taking a breath after holding it. The AMC, that is the Alpha Male Club, has come up with a collection of principles and rules and a behavioral system that will allow you to derive as much pleasure from life as is possible and thereby live the better life, which brings us to precept number 2, cardinal rule number 2. He who derives more pleasure from life lives the better life. Now, not only does your body understand pleasure and pain, but your mind and spirit understand it as easily and simply as putting your hand in the fire or taking a breath after being underwater. And why shouldn't it? Your brain's higher functions have a right to be here and exist in their own right. They have a right to be fed and appeased just like anything else that exists on the planet. Trees derive pleasure from sunlight and mineral nutrients. Aquatic life derives pleasure from plankton. Being an animal with a larger cerebral cortex, that's a brain, means that we as humans can derive pleasure and feed the soul from a number of other activities as well. But learning how to feed the soul is not something which is inherent. It is not hardwired into your brain like the need for oxygen. In order that he flourish, Mother Nature in her genius has made sure that man is a social animal. How do you make an organism into a social animal? You give it the ability to learn, the ability to emulate, the ability to copy, which brings us to precept number 3. The ability to derive pleasure must be learned. And here are a couple of big scary words. The ability to derive pleasure must be cultivated. The ability to derive pleasure must be cultured. One has to learn to derive pleasure from the world. How do we do this? How do we best derive pleasure from the world? Let's go all the way back to ancient Greece and meet a member of the AMC, the Alpha Male Club, a dude called Epicurus. A little background about Epicurus and his time. Epicurus was born in 341, died in 270 BC. These were happening times for ancient Greece. A few of the characters and events that will ring a bell for you about ancient Greece are Alexander the Great, the Parthenon, Greek vases, Homer, the Odyssey, the Iliad, Troy, Socrates, Aristotle, Plato. This is the sort of world we are dealing with right now, where most of what we define as Western culture was born. You might have heard Epicurus' name before. From his name, we get the word Epicurean, and epicure, which Webster's dictionary defines thusly. Epicure is a person with refined taste in food and wine, a person devoted to sensuous pleasure and luxurious living, after Epicurus, who supposedly advocated sensuous pleasure as the highest good. Epicurean is defined as someone who is devoted to the pursuit of pleasure, fond of good food, comfort, and ease, hedonistic. Epicurus was a philosopher, and he had a school called the Garden, and was the founder of a group of people who lived together in colonies who were called Epicureans. It was quite a popular system, and these colonies thrived for many years after his death. History has misled us about Epicureans and Epicurus' philosophies. They were not big drinkers and partiers. In fact, they were the opposite. They were quite frugal and had very modest lifestyles. Epicurus' famous quote goes like this: "It is man's nature to pursue pleasure and avoid pain. Therefore, the good and virtuous life consists of the pursuit of pleasure and the avoidance of pain." That's a structurally simple sentence. In it, he twice mentions pleasure and pain, but in the second section, he mentions two other interesting words, good and virtuous. Listen again to Epicurus' famous quote. "It is man's nature to pursue pleasure and avoid pain. Therefore, the good and virtuous life consists of the pursuit of pleasure and the avoidance of pain. Goodness and virtue are two very Greek concepts that we will wrestle with a little later. But suffice to say right now that the opposite of virtue is vice, the opposite of good is evil, evil is represented by Darth Vader, virtue by Luke Skywalker, pleasure and pain, good and evil, two very simple concepts, heroes and villains. Heroes derive more pleasure from life than villains. You have to learn to be a hero. All members of the AMC are heroes. Cardinal Rule 3 states, the ability to derive pleasure from life must be learned. You can extrapolate on that and discover that it really means that you have to learn to become virtuous. You have to learn to act like a hero, not a villain. Card-carrying members of the AMC act like heroes, not like villains. Why? Because heroes derive more pleasure from life. That is all. So, to recap this section, we have discussed the 3 cardinal rules to which alpha males, members of the AMC, the Alpha Male Club, subscribe to and are governed by, and they are as follows. Number 1, the purpose of life is pleasure. Number 2, he who derives more pleasure lives the better life. Number 3, the ability to derive pleasure is a skill that must be cultivated. So let's get cultivating.